Good Monday morning to you. Welcome on into Morning JOX. JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell alongside John Saber after an action-packed win. Got some college football news. Of course, the NFL dominates as the NFL playoffs is now set. And the Tennessee Titans are now on the clock as we hold the number one.
You're awfully excited for someone whose team got the number one overall pick.
Hey, that means we're trending upward. We're trending upward.
Okay.
We're going to draft the
up the draft board. Okay, that's what you're. Okay,
Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. I hope y'all are ready to learn Nashville language, buddy, because we're coming for you. At this point in time, after the loss to the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots end up knocking off the Buffalo Bills yesterday, it's solidified that the Tennessee Titans will have the number one overall pick in the 2025 draft. And we're on the clock. So hopefully we're going to be checking out this the Senior Bowl coming up. Of course, the NFL Combine, looking for that franchise guy with the number one overall pick, because after the quarterback performance we saw from both Mason Rudolph and Will Levis, I think we should be trending towards the quarterback position. But hey, that's neither here nor there. We'll continue to look at that as we get closer to the draft. But we had some hardwood action here in college basketball as the SEC conference play has opened up, especially for Alabama and Auburn, both putting up great performances over the weekend. Let's start with the Alabama Crimson Tide after they absolutely obliterated Oklahoma over the weekend, 107-79. And there's something that is that's trending with Alabama. If you've watched Nate Oates-led teams, they live and die by the shots. They are going to get to the cup, but for Alabama to be as deep as that as they are, still anchored by Mark Sears. But when you got 22 from Mark Sears, LeBaron as a freshman coming in and making his impact felt with 16 points as well. Grant Nelson bringing in 12 as well. Alabama right now. And we'll get to Auburn in a second, too. But if you had to start off conference play in the SEC, and we had seen both Alabama and Auburn have some tough non-con games, but to jump right into conference play and dominate the way that they have to start things off, I think the future is looking extremely bright for both of these programs. And, I mean, for Alabama, they're aggressive. And I love the approach that this Alabama team has. One, offensively, like I said, they're going to live and die by the three-point shot. But they still are trying to attack the rim if possible, athletic enough big men to guard on both sides of the floor and also not be liabilities on the offensive side. I think that we have the two deepest teams here in the state as far as the SEC goes. A shout out to, we'll get to Auburn in a second because I think Missouri, they're not the Missouri team of years past. They're going to be better. But Auburn to go out and perform the way they did as well. But just to start off opening up conference play in the SEC and basketball, both Alabama and Auburn fans, for every disappointment that you had during football season, you can hang your hat on this basketball team. This basketball season, especially on the men's side, is going to be pretty active, and you got to be feeling pretty good.
Okay, so are at least Auburn fans, if not Alabama fans, willing to accept that? Willing to accept that they're a basketball school now? Or at least this year?
A basketball season.
Right.
Like, I think if you look at 2024-25, for everything that went on during football season, coaching changes for Alabama, whole regime changes, and you saw the 2024 season, you live and die with what Jalen Milroe did for you. I think you would wash away everything that happened in the football season if Alabama gets back to the Final Four and this time wins a national title. I think you'll accept it.
Do you think more Alabama fans would watch an Alabama national championship game or this year's spring game?
Ooh.
Thought so. Yeah. Because your hesitation says it all.
Because you're hanging on the hope if you're watching the spring game of.
I know.
That's
why I asked. I know. That's why I asked.
I don't know, but okay. So Mark Sears comes back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what Grant Nelson and Cliff, what they bring to you as big men. You got LeBaron as a young guy. You got those guys coming off the bench that have been absolutely spectacular. I think they would lean more towards the basketball season because now it's. There, at least now you have the expectation. It's not something that, it's a complete regime change. The players are the same. You expect them to make a deeper run, and the excitement will still be there. I know Auburn fans, absolutely. You would absolutely watch what happened during football season and watch Bruce Pearl not blow it in the first round against, another Ivy League team.
I don't know. When our home one buddy calls in and seeing as how they're, top 10 in portal rankings, and he pointed out something on Kip and Terry's show over the weekend, how Auburn's projected by one person or one site to be 10-2 or
Okay.
have them as the top 10 team right now. So I'm pretty sure as great as Bruce Pearl's basketball team, granted only one game, or at least in the conference play, playing right now, and are if chalk holds,
Mm-hmm.
would most likely make a very deep run in the NCAA tournament, if not towards the Final Four. There are going to be a good number of Auburn fans that are like, yeah, well, we need to see what's going on in Hugh Freeze's make or break year.
Right. But I think now as we transition into like the basketball play, especially now with conference play, if you hadn't got a chance to watch Auburn or Alabama, in the non-con, you saw them compete. Especially in the Auburn front where they had some monumental, games, going down to Houston, beating up on those boys and games like that. But I think for one, Bruce Pearl, it's almost a year-long wait because we saw what they did in the regular season last year, winning the SEC tournament, and knowing that this Auburn team left a lot of chips on the table last year after losing early on to Yale. But you get Janai Broome back, and he seems like a very complete player now, taking another year back in college. The same way with Mark Sears, where they are the engines and the focal points, and everything around them just needs to make sure they continue to elevate their game. I think for Auburn, as we kind of just take a look at their game against Missouri, this Auburn team, one, they're like Alabama. They're deep. And when they get contributions from other guys like, Chad Baker-Mazara giving you 13, Denver Jones giving you 10, and even Chaney Johnson coming off the bench, and a guy that really off and on this season, he's been in the starting lineup a few times, and when he does come on the floor, he's an impact guy on both sides of the ball. Defensively and offensively, he's not afraid to go give you, at least 10 to 15 points game in and game out. But I think the development from the guys that came back and they've been in this rotation, they've been, some focal points. Even Dylan Cardwell, who maybe not playing as many minutes as he played last year, but just having his impact on the floor. He's no Walker Kessler, but he's an energy guy. He's, he'll get, those dirty rebounds. He's hustling up and down the floor. He's setting the back screens. He does all the dirty work. But when you have, Janai Broome coming out, and again, he only shot 2 threes, but the fact that he's not hesitating and thinking anymore when he's stretching the floor as a big man, I think his impact is felt in overall game as well. So when you look at the way they play Missouri, and again, Missouri has improved. They went to the transfer portal, and this was like a whole different team than it was last year. But for Auburn to go out and dominate on both sides of the floor that they did, holding Missouri to 38% shooting percent from 3, it's a defensive front. Like, I think for both Alabama and Auburn, what they do defensively almost adds to what they have offensively because they're able to get steals. They're able to, make the shots that the other team puts up very contested. So I look at both of these units, and now that they're jumping into conference play, especially for Alabama, this Oklahoma team was ranked. Like, this was a ranked Oklahoma team in the top 15 in the nation, and they just went out there and beat the brakes off of them. And it really never felt that Oklahoma was in the game. And just the pace in which they play, I think, is going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of teams down the road. But I do think, Tennessee, they looked pretty good. When you look at around just the SEC landscape, we could potentially be looking at, 12 to 13 teams in the NCAA tournament, and Auburn and Alabama being those flagship programs to represent the conference.
Maybe the SEC has become a basketball conference now because obviously there's only one kind of toting the banner for football right now, and really didn't think it would be that one. But to see, I think they were heading into last week in 10, 12, however many SEC teams ranked. You've got 3 in the top 5. Just sitting right there. It's like it's not something you've seen recently in basketball. Football, yeah, absolutely. Baseball, okay, yeah, I'll give you that. But 1, maybe 2 in the top 10 for basketball. So I hope that this depth of the league can continue. Now, yeah, it's probably they're probably going to cannibalize themselves because all they're going to do is play each other right now. But as it stands right now, in 1, 2, a little over not quite 3 weeks in their outlive game, Auburn's going to welcome in Tennessee, and right now that's 1v2, and that's going to be extremely fun and fantastic matchup to watch. But for Auburn, I know they've been tested on the road before, but it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle these next 2 games because, yes, starting 1-0 in conference play is that's the goal. That's the plan. That's what you want to do. You want to be able to, all right, we got the first one that's going to handle this, but now you got to go on the road and you're going to face
Yep.
two teams that, quite frankly, you're much better than, but that doesn't mean you're easily going to win. I believe Bruce Pearl said after the Missouri press conference that we're good enough to beat every team on the road and lose to every team at home.
Mm-hmm.
So even though, yeah, they should mop the floor with Texas and South Carolina over the next week, doesn't mean that they're guaranteed to do it.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. When you look at just how deep the SEC is, and for Auburn's sake, again, it's not really most of the regular season because I do think these two teams will handle their business. It's when are you peaking? Because we saw Auburn on the backstretch of the season start to ascend. And it was like, okay, well, now they're starting to figure it all out because they were scratching and clawing just trying to get, a good, decent spot in the SEC tournament. And when they got into the SEC tournament, they won in multiple fashions. And it just left a lot to be desired once they got to the NCAA tournament. It was like, oh my gosh, like you did all that just to lose in the first round. Whereas Alabama, it was, oh man, they got hot there early on. And then towards the end of February, they had a few game skids. And when they got to the NCAA tournament, the SEC tournament, they lost. And then when they got to the NCAA tournament, you looked at their path and was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if they're ready to take on these blue bloods. And then, of course, the Grant Nelson game against North Carolina, it was like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they do have it in them. So I think both Alabama and Auburn starting off SEC conference play, boom, get big wins. You're feeling confident. Now you know what the grind is for the next 2 months because everything is setting up for March, but also just the SEC as a whole. It's going to be a fist fight game in and game out, no matter who's on that schedule. And to your point with Alabama taking on South Carolina this week, and also Auburn taking on Texas on the road. So it should be exciting to see. Also, some good news for Alabama on the football front, as we know that Jalen Milroe was going, taking his talents to the NFL. Malachi Moore also taking his talents to the NFL. We got, of course, all the action in the transfer portal. Now some guys are starting to announce that they're actually staying with the Crimson Tide this season. No bigger name really than the linebacker Deontay Lawson, who they lost against Oklahoma due to a knee injury, but he announces on Instagram that he will be returning to the Crimson Tide. Also, Justin Jefferson, two defensive linemen, and Tim Keenan III and LT Overton. So you got a nice core there in the front seven returning to Alabama, and also a veteran in the defensive back room in Damani Jackson, the transfer from USC, who overall, if you didn't really know or didn't really watch him in cornerback play, he was a bright spot for that Alabama defense. And one, he's a thumper, and I know he's only going to get better with his height, standing like 6'1", 6'2", being a lanky corner and developing in that Kane Womack defense where you want the retention of some nuclear guys like those puzzle pieces with Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson, again, two of your linebackers who were all over the field. Now they're returning for another season. So I think defensively for Alabama, you're feeling good. It's like, okay, well, we got some core pieces back. Can we build around them? Because these guys definitely made their impact in 2024. Can they continue that in 25? And we'll see what that looks like for Alabama moving forward. Offensively, of course, with all the transfer guys from the wide receiver room, that depth is going to be a little bit shaky. But you lose Jalen Milroe, so it's now time for a new guy to step in the quarterback position. Of course, Justice Haynes, who announced that Michigan out of that running back room. Jan Miller saying that he is 1,000%. It's going to be interesting to see just what this depth looks like, what this roster turnover looks like for both Alabama and Auburn moving forward. So just kind of wrapping 9450. Your text message, your calls here on Morning JOX are always welcome. Take a look at the NFL slate from over the weekend as we have the playoffs set for both AFC and NFC. We'll take a dive into that as we recap what's going on right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 6:18 here on Morning JOX. Damian Mitchell alongside John Saybear here with you. As an exciting weekend. If you it's always I don't know when it opens, I don't know when it closes. It's just kind of somebody hit the portal. Okay, well we'll see. But some guys have found their landing spots, as we know. Former Oregon Duck, former Auburn Tiger, former South Carolina Gamecock quarterback Robbie Ashford has announced he will be taking his talents to Wake Forest. Hopefully he finds a landing spot. And I mean,
what are you talking about? He just found a landing spot.
No, but I hope he,
okay.
can play. That's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I hope he can find somewhere to play.
Oh, okay.
Because once you
saw follows boy TJ Finley, Incarnate Word will let him play, and it can lead to better things.
I'm telling you, man. Like
Cam Ward,
maybe the FCS route, but hey, he's at Wake Forest. He announced
Stanford ain't that far.
You feel me? And him and Hatch.
Yeah, they will look good.
He would throw for 8,000 and run for 1,000.
One thing to note about the just looking ahead at the NCAA tournament, looking at Alabama and Auburn basketball, I don't know if you can get tickets now. Maybe you can just go ahead and buy them. I'm not quite sure, but if so, maybe you just want to go ahead and snag them in Kentucky, because here are the first round sites: Raleigh, North Carolina, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Denver, Colorado, Cleveland, Ohio, Wichita, Kansas, Seattle, Washington, Providence, Rhode Island, and Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
I'm noticing a distinct lack of southernness in that. I guess your farthest south are Lexington and Raleigh.
Yeah.
So generally, it looks like the last several years they've been finding a way to put your top 2, 3, 4 seeds, whatever one's closest to them. So maybe Kentucky, possibly Raleigh. Because either way, both teams are most likely not going to have to travel.
Yeah, because I was thinking, didn't Auburn have to go to Tacoma, Washington last season?
Yeah.
Because
I thought Birmingham were hosting it this year, and I was like, oh wait, no, that's women's, I believe, and I think Birmingham's getting it back in a couple of years. So I was like, oh, it'd be great to have Alabama and Auburn here again. They're doing so. Oh no, they're not even going to play close. So,
so
maybe save up and go to one of the regionals in either Newark, San Francisco, Atlanta, or Indianapolis. So. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or bank and hope it's in the Final Four and Cole's home away from home, San Antonio.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so
one
it's
way or the other, you're going to have to travel. Yeah,
you're going to have to travel. And, I mean, with as many SEC teams that we're seeing getting a chance to potentially find themselves in the NCAA tournament, no matter where you're going to be traveling all over the place. Kind of looking again at the transfer portal in college football. Georgia, after their loss to Notre Dame, get some good news as they sign both Zachariah and Zion Branch from USC. If you saw Zachariah Branch, I know 2 years ago for USC, he was an absolute firecracker. Didn't really do too much this past season. I think he only played one game, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it was an injury, and it kind of just went downhill from there. Didn't get much time there for the Trojans. But that's a place, wide receiver, especially for Zachariah and Georgia, it's a position of need. As you know, as we saw that Georgia led the NCAA and drop passes, and you watch Dylan Bell in the matchup against Notre Dame. That's a position of need that they're going to attack and hopefully get a chance to bolster that room moving forward into 2025. But also some NFL action over the weekend as some teams were fighting for seeding purposes. Some people were getting ready for the NFL draft after the last game of the season. Shout out to the Tennessee Titans as they lose to the Houston Texans.
When y'all were favored too.
Yeah, literally the B team for the Houston Texans went out there and beat guys that were getting contract incentives. You could tell they were making a point for Tony Pollard. They were like, hey, big dog, you only got 83 yards.
Yeah, Texans couldn't go up or down those. That game did not matter.
It didn't, and they still found a way to win.
I guess it did for one half of the participants out there.
Right.
Well, at least the crowd showed up to play. Well, to be fair, the weather wasn't pleasant, but
it wasn't. I was there.
Like, you were one of the 3,000? There,
if that.
Oh, okay,
you should have seen it. So it was 13-0 in the second quarter, and you could just see people piling out. And after halftime, oh my God, like it was bad. It was bad. The weather was bad, and also the team was too. But hey, Calvin Ridley over 1,000 yards. Okay. Congratulations!
All right,
had to deal with both Mason Rudolph and Will Levis. You still found a way to go for 1,000.
All right. When he gets traded next year to a contender, hope you spend that draft pick wisely.
It's the same way we did DeAndre Hopkins. Like, sorry we wasted your time, but we thought that he sold a lot of jerseys and helped the Nashville economy. We'll be seeing you out the door, brother.
Who knew the NFL had feeder teams in their league? Because Derrick Henry out here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the Baltimore Ravens. It was a pretty good game over the weekend with them and the Cleveland Browns. But you knew that Cleveland, Jameis Winston, and when Bailey Zappi is your starter, it's kind of just, hey, let's be easy on us. No, they didn't. They went out there and beat the brakes off them, and they are the number 3 seed in the AFC. So when you look at the AFC side of things, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs sitting at 16-1, well, 14-2, 15-2, rather, after they're beat down by the Denver Broncos, but I mean, they didn't have anybody playing. They are the number 1 seed, but the number 2 seed, you have the Buffalo Bills, who will be taking on the Denver Broncos, who are the 7 seed, and Baltimore Ravens sitting at the 3 seed, taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, who came in at the 6 seed, and the Houston Texans as your 4 spot as the NFC South representatives. They will be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. On the NFC side of things, a game last night in Sunday Night Football that was going to determine the number 1 seed between the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. Detroit knocks off Minnesota 31-9, and somebody that we know here in the state of Alabama, Jahmyr Gibbs, just goes out there and runs for 23 carries, 139 yards, and 3 tutties. If you had him in fantasy football and you went the entire season, he definitely got you a healthy amount of points. But the Detroit Lions, listen to this. Like, this is crazy. Never would have thought that we'd be having this conversation at any point in my lifetime, that we're looking at the Detroit Lions as the number 1 seed in the NFC, and the Tennessee Titans are the number 1 overall pick in the draft going into 2025. Boy, have times changed over the years, and it is what it is. But the Detroit Lions lock up the number 1 seed. The number 2 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles, will be taking on the Green Bay Packers, who come in at 7. And the Los Angeles Rams at number 3 seed will be taking on the Washington Commanders as the 6th seed. If also you saw Marcus Mariota lock that in against the Dallas Cowboys yesterday, great game. And the number 4 seed in the NFC, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as they knocked off, as they ended up, coming back, against who they play? NFC South. Shoot. They came back. I am
Panthers. Saints. Falcons.
No, the Panthers played the Falcons. So yeah, it was Saints. They came back against y'all. Yeah, they came back against Saints yesterday. And because they match up between Michael Penix Jr. and Bryce Young. Arguably, was probably one of the best matchups.
I mean, it went to overtime.
Exactly. And you want to talk about the future looking bright for both of those teams, because Bryce Young got his groove back after, having a rough start. But also, you got to understand the Panthers are not a great franchise. But to see him and the way that they competed yesterday, knocking off the Atlanta Falcons. But Michael Penix Jr., yeah, he is the quarterback of the future. I know you're paying Kirk Cousins, but
you're about to not be.
Yeah, you're about to get that off the book as quick as you possibly can. But the Tampa Bay Bucks will be taking on the Minnesota Vikings in the 4-5 matchup in the NFC. But
would you take Kirk Cousins right now for that number 1 overall pick?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We will take the money. He can't be any worse than what we have right now, and he's shown that. I mean, even when he was in Minnesota, he had only had 1 playoff win, he at least got him there, contending consecutive years. We would take that. We just want to be competitive because we don't have a quarterback on the roster. Will Levis and Mason Rudolph basically fighting for 32 of 32 spots. No, we have a long way to go, and we're going to put a rookie in the midst of all this of just like, hey, just do something.
So there's 2 interesting things I found in the AFC playoffs. Actually, they're both in the same game. The Texans, this would be their, I think, 8th or 9th wild card game.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one has been Saturday at 3:30. Every single one. They've had like that midday Saturday game. Never had a primetime game. So they've more or less been the true TV game, more or less. Their entire career, which I guess fully understandable. Also, you know how many postseason starts Herbert has?
2, because they beat Jacksonville, and they lost to somebody right after that.
How many does Stroud have?
1.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Stroud's about to make his second start, and Justin Herbert, who lost to Bo Nix in his senior year, by the way, is about to make his 3rd start.
Yeah.
Even though Herbert's been there for he's feel like he's been there for a decade and a half.
Right.
He's only making his third playoff start.
And I got to give a lot of credit to Jim Harbaugh too. I didn't think they were going to be that successful year one. I thought that it would take a little bit of acclimation period, but when you draft Ladd McConkey, who ended up being an absolute steal in the draft, giving Justin Herbert some consistency out in receiver. I mean, Quentin Johnston, I still don't think is a number one guy, but he was going out there putting up some numbers when he does catch the football. But they made their identity of running the football, and to have J.K. Dobbins hurt for a good part of the year and still letting Justin Herbert go out there and ball out, he's been doing his thing. And I got to give Jim Harbaugh a lot of credit going into, getting them to the playoffs. And it's going to be interesting to see how this thing looks moving forward. So that's some NFL matchups right there as we get set for the NFL playoffs getting set this weekend. Of course, some big basketball action here in the state of Alabama, both Alabama and Auburn with big wins to open up SEC play. So we'll continue the conversation on the other side. 205-945-0. Did I make a mistake on the playoff matchups? Oh, my fault. Yeah, my apologies. Yeah, on each other 3-6 on the weekend this weekend, and the Chargers will be taking on the Texans in the divisional round there in the NFL. 945-0. Let's keep the conversation going on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. .633 here on Morning JOX, JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell alongside John Saybear here with you to the top of the hour to get you set for McElroy and Kubel at 10. Three-man front from 10 to 2, and then they pass you on to the legend himself, Paul Feinbaum. And take a back look at the NFL playoff bracket. Let me make sure I got everything right. My apologies, y'all, if I messed up. The number 1 seed on the AFC side, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2 seed, the Buffalo Bills will be taking on the 7th seed Denver Broncos in year 1. Bo Nix gets the Denver Broncos to the playoffs. So Sean Payton, it does work. The Baltimore Ravens will be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in a 3-6 matchup, and the Houston Texans will be taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in the 4-5. In the NFC, The Detroit Lions secured the number 1 seed. The Philadelphia Eagles coming in the 2 seed will be taking on the Green Bay Packers. Tampa Bay, the Bucks will be taking on the Washington Commanders, and the LA Rams will be taking on the Minnesota Vikings for a chance to hoist that Lombardi trophy. Right now, is it pretty much Kansas City's to lose, John, or do you believe that Detroit can make it to the Super Bowl this time?
Well, I feel like it's two different questions because they won't face each other until the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think while Detroit is playing really good ball, I think and might be the overall team, I think it's going to be tough to stop Philly. So I think Philly might get Detroit. And as much as I do think smoke and mirrors isn't the right phrase, but the way Kansas City has been finding ways to win,
Mm-hmm.
we chalk it up to, they're just winners and find ways to win, which you can't knock that, but a lot of it feels like luck though. And it also feels like that's going to run out. But I've learned over the last few years, I'm not betting against it. So it's like betting against Nick Saban. There's no way he can get this. Well, sure enough, he let a naysayer know. So I'm going to take the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And if I'm proved wrong, then I'd rather be proved wrong taking the Chiefs than be proved wrong yet again going against them.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Like when you look at just the Chiefs' dominance over the past, couple seasons, this year kind of just feels like an anomaly in the regular season of, okay, they're not, quote unquote, the best team playing right now because of the fact that the optics just don't look the same.
They just look good. They haven't looked
right.
Well, they've been at times, but for the most part, they haven't looked great like they have in years past.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, the one year that they were stopped in the Super Bowl is when their offensive line, specifically left tackle, was just all out of sorts, and that's how it looks now.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think they are vulnerable. Would I take anyone else in that in that conference right now? No. As much as I do think Buffalo probably will beat them, I'm not taking Buffalo. I will take Kansas City until they've proven otherwise. Just like Georgia. Like I did not see Notre Dame handling them the way they did,
Mm-hmm.
but I said before, I'd rather be wrong picking Georgia than be wrong again picking Notre Dame.
Yeah. And then even
picking against Georgia.
And then like anybody in the AFC, I think that could potentially like give them some sort of headache along the way. I'll probably lean the Baltimore Ravens because I do think the addition of Derrick Henry for Baltimore, they could limit Kansas City's possessions, where if Kansas City continues to be not as dominant or they start playing a little sloppy and, they're giving the Baltimore more chances to have their offense on the field, it's going to be tough when Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson start chewing up that clock. And what we've seen in the regular season from Lamar Jackson statistically, it's probably one of the best seasons ever, where he's thrown for over 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. And also he was 75 yards away from having 1,000 yards
just
on
right
the
there,
season.
Yeah.
And Derrick Henry runs for 1,300 and it's just tough watching him in another uniform. I'll just put it like that. It is hard to fathom.
I know you feel like Squidward in the tower looking out, watching SpongeBob and Lamar and all them. Yeah, I know. I know it hurts, but
it's brutal.
Yeah,
it's brutal because that one move completely decimated the entire franchise. Like it was already starting to trend downward, but at least we had some hope of, yes, as long as we just keep giving it to Derrick Henry, we'll find a way to make it work. And then he takes his talents to Baltimore, and now they find themselves as a 3 seed going into the playoffs, and we're getting ready for the number 1 overall pick. But I can cry over that spill milk later. 205-834-9450 had some action on the hardwood last night of both Alabama and Auburn getting big wins in college basketball to start SEC conference play. Let's go to our resident Auburn fan. Wardam Don wants to talk about that. What's going on, Don?
Hey, good morning, guys. Happy Monday to you.
Happy Monday, brother.
How's everybody doing? I hope everybody had a great weekend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Damien, a great weekend for both Alabama and Auburn. And you're right. I mean, even though I'm an Auburn fan, I got to give Alabama credit. Man, they look great. They did.
Man, it's hard to beat them when they start knocking down them shots, dog. It's a boat race.
40 days until y'all face each other. 40 days.
That's right. We play in Alabama first, and then the very last game of the year is in Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
But John, I heard you brought up the Tennessee game in a couple of weeks. That is the outlive game, like you said. And college game day is going to be there for that game. So hopefully by then. But PG's got a chance to knock off, and the Gators got a chance to knock off Tennessee tomorrow night. But how about that Kentucky-Florida game on Saturday?
It was a good one.
I mean, my goodness, that kid for dadgum Kentucky could not miss, man.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness.
Yeah,
I think Florida played really good. That Damon, and the Gators got a good team. That's going to be a great game tomorrow night. And sorry, Constance, but I got to root for the Gators. I need Tennessee to. Hey, Damon, standings, buddy. I mean, this SEC is going to be a gauntlet, and like you guys. This and everybody will always say this: you got to win the games you got to win all your home games, and you got to steal a road game or two. I think the conference, you're going to lose some games. I think 13-5 might win this conference.
Yeah, in the regular season, and then the SEC this season in particular, especially just watching how everybody's played in conference play, it's just going to be a dogfight, and I think it's going to be exciting basketball where. It's no longer, I mean, of course, the SEC dominance in football has always been there. But when you watch how these teams play in conference play moving forward, it's going to be hard to deny that the SEC isn't the best basketball conference right now.
How are you? Thank you, ma'am. Have a wonderful day.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Damien. I'm doing DoorDash.
You're not changing your allegiance now, are you?
Dang, dog.
No, but anyway, guys, I know y'all got a lot of callers and everything, but one thing, Damien, I believe you brought up NFL incentives a minute ago, and I heard this last night. Geno Smith for Seattle ended up winning 3 of his incentives that made him $6 million extra besides his contract.
There we go, man. They're fine. They're fine.
One last question. Got the number one pick, and if you pick a quarterback, who do you want? Sanders or Cam Ward?
We appreciate the call, Don. I'd say Cam Ward. I'd take Cam.
What do you mean Jalen's there?
Jalen who?
Milroe. He declared.
That's fine.
What are you talking about?
We're talking about number 1 overall pick.
Correct.
That would be another Will Levis situation.
Okay.
That would be another Will. We ain't got time for him to be running for his life. At least Cam Ward, accuracy-wise.
Well, I mean, you may want him running the way he can run. That may actually benefit you.
Now, we tried that with Malik Willis a couple years back.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
Nah, man. If given the choice between the two, I think Cam Ward's probably the more complete guy right now. Not to say, I mean, we just don't necessarily, I'm not going to say we don't have a need because he would definitely make an impact, but we don't necessarily need Travis Hunter right now. If anything, if I put it like this, it's very similar to when we had the number 1 overall pick and we traded with the Rams and they end up getting Jared Goff. If we're going to trade back and still stay within the top 5, maybe if you're not confident of saying that, hey, we want to take a quarterback number 1, if they're still available 3 through 5 because we've traded back with a team or something, I could see us taking the quarterback there, but because I don't want us to make the same mistake we did with Will Levis. Like everybody coming out of the draft was like, Will Levis is not, he ain't gonna be a day 1 guy.
So much so you bought the jersey. You believe?
I believed.
Okay.
I believed. I thought the pieces that we got around him this year, I was like, hey,
okay.
He has no. It would be on him for him to fail, and it was. it was 1,000%.
Also, going back to what Don said about wanting Tennessee to lose, I feel the exact opposite. Like if I'm Auburn, no, I want Tennessee to be undefeated when we play them, so that way we beat them.
Mm-hmm.
You want them at their best.
We don't need no help.
No,
we don't need no help. We just, hey, they want to come in here, number 1 overall team. Oh, we'll see.
Yeah.
And at that point, you beat them. And if you handle your business up until that point, you're going to number 1 spot.
Correct. And with that, too, you would have a win over a number 1 team on your resume because unlike football, you're going to lose at some point.
Right.
So you're going to have some losses. If you were to, say, lose to that game, hey, you lost to the number 1 team. Hey, that's in basketball, thankfully, there are forgivable losses and understandable. And that would be probably the most understandable one. Now, Tennessee catches a couple L's and they finish with 6-7 losses. All of a sudden, that win doesn't look as good. So, no, I'd want Tennessee at their absolute best.
100%.
On the, what is it, the 25th, whenever they face each other?
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I would much rather them be, if College Game Day is going to be there and all eyes on, Neville Arena, I would want to have that pressure. I say pressure, that luxury of you handle your business up until that point. We are the best team in college basketball. And then you'll have over the number one team in the nation at that point. So we'll continue the conversation on the other side, continue to look at what happened over the weekend, NFL news, some college football, any transfer portal updates. Keep it locked right here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. .648 here on Morning JOX. Damian Mitchell, John Saber here with you for a few more moments as we get you set for McElroy and Kublik in the mall there for the Sugar Bowl on the television for. And Cole doing double duty this past week with the Sugar Bowl radio and then the First Responders Bowl, which ended up being a pretty damn good game. between North Texas and Texas State. Didn't know who was on the field, but there were a lot of points scored in that matchup. And of course, we have the college football playoff semifinals this weekend, coming up Thursday and Friday, as we have the final 4 teams vying for a chance to play in the national title. We have Penn State, Ohio State, Texas, and also Notre Dame. And just kind of going over the weekend and just kind of looking back at the matchups that we saw. Again, over the year, when you look at what these final teams are, with Penn State taking on Notre Dame, Texas, and Ohio State, since the playoffs has started, has gone out and pretty much got the return on investment that they paid all this money for in the start of the 2024 season. And we knew coming into the season that this was the best roster assembled. And now on the backstretch, you kind of have those question marks of, okay, you understand how they lost to Oregon early on in the season, only lost to them by 1. It almost seems like they just ran out of time, more or less. They just straight up lost the ball game. Then they lost to Michigan, and it's, okay, I understand it's a rivalry game, but I can't understand how Michigan has this kryptonite. And going into the playoffs, it was, if Ryan Day is one and done, he's going to be on his way out. And now we're looking at an Ohio State team who is absolutely clicking on all cylinders since the playoffs started, against a team like Texas, where when they're on, but they've shown lapses in times in key moments where they don't put teams away. So you think it's going to be a fist fight between those two teams, and then you flip it over for Penn State and Notre Dame, where Notre Dame is kind of just like, we're playing with house money. Y'all already thought we ain't supposed to be here anyway. And now not only have they knocked off, an Indiana team that was surging, they beat up on Georgia physically there in the Sugar Bowl, and they look like the better team moving forward. And Penn State is kind of the luck of the draw of, well, we hadn't really played nobody. Granted, SMU, they look like they didn't belong on the field with Penn State. And then when they knocked off Boise State, it was, okay, if you shut down Ashton Jeanty, you'll let anybody else beat you on the field, and nobody did. So I think as we get closer to kickoff, we'll continue to break those games down. But I'm interested, all 4 of these teams have a viable conversation of they could be hoisting a college football championship in the end. And it's going to be the first one for any of these teams. Ohio State, they've played for a national title, didn't win it. Texas is now on the surge up with Steve Sarkisian. Penn State, James Franklin can rewrite all the narratives of, okay, yeah, you can't say I win a big one. Then the first year of the 12-team playoff will win it all. And Notre Dame is, okay, well, this ain't the Notre Dame team of all. So I think a lot of the narratives that we have going against for these teams going into the potential national title game, I think the committee ended up getting it right in the end. It's just the path to get there was probably questionable along the way.
Yeah, and it's weird to not have your 1 and 2 seeds in there, your number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in here, but the next 4 teams are here.
Mm-hmm.
So say what you want about the committee and how everything, whatever's done. Like I do think more or less everything is right. Yeah, the top 2 ranked teams and seeded teams aren't here, but they lost convincingly, so they didn't really deserve to continue playing. What would be surprising, or actually what's not surprising, is how any of the teams that are still left, any of them can win. There's not one that feels like, well, it's not like if Arizona State would have made it somehow, it'd be like, right, okay, well, yeah, they beat Texas, but can they keep doing it? Or if Boise or SMU, one of those teams, had found their way here even after getting an upset, and like, maybe. No, it feels like, especially the way all these teams are playing, anyone can win, and you would not be surprised, even if, yeah, like you mentioned, really, like James Franklin's going to go out and do. I mean, the way his team has played, mm-hmm. Granted, I do think that there are some questions with Penn State and Texas, given the path that they faced, but they've handled their business when it's mattered. And so it wouldn't surprise me if any of the teams that are in the field right now win. I do think Notre Dame's probably playing the best, or excuse me, Ohio State's playing the best ball right now. I think Notre Dame may be the best overall team right now, but any of those other 2 teams definitely could win this whole thing.
Yeah, and to your point, it's not like we're having a conversation of, one of these teams is lucky to get there. Nah, you could you could direct me to a conversation where you could lay out an argument that all 4 teams could be hoisting the trophy in the end. Let's go to the phone lines before we wrap up here. Let's go to Melvin. Wants to talk some college football playoff with us this morning. What's going on, Melvin?
Yeah, I was wanting to know, guys, do y'all feel like, I mean, I feel this way that, man, I believe Michigan actually did Ohio State a favor. I mean, they playing with a chip on their shoulder now, and they playing, a very high level of football. And I know that, Ryan Day has gotten uh, I guess the little hex on him or whatever, saying he can't beat Michigan, but I think they did him a favor. I mean, am I off base on that, or do y'all think it's something different why they playing so well?
It feels like they pulled an Auburn in, was it 2017, when Auburn beat both Alabama and Georgia, and then they still ended up in not only Auburn, to their credit, made it the SEC championship, but Georgia got that one, and then both of those teams made it into the not only college football playoff but the national championship game. So maybe it's one thing Nick Saban always said, like, you shouldn't have to lose to find your focus, to find out the mistakes and everything else like that. But that said, he also said, don't waste a failure.
Yep.
And right now, it looks like Ohio State is not doing that.
Yeah, they're representing well. Somebody texted in and also let